Recording. Here we go. Welcome to Arise and
Shine
with Jeanette and
Sandy.
Yay!
Good morning.
Yes. Today we're going over two ladies in the Bible. I'm sure you've heard about them. One kind of gets a bad rap, but they both, you're going to find out, end up being really amazing women.
Yeah.
The verses.
Who are they?
Who are they? Okay, yeah, I will spill the beans. It's Mary and Martha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're looking at Luke 10:38 through 42.
Yep. And remember, we're coming off of laying up your treasures in heaven. So
yes, these ladies beautifully show what this looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Perfect
and
examples.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So this is why we picked them. God told her. Okay, John 11 through 45, actually. And then John 12, verses 12 through, 11. Matthew 26, verses 6 through 13. Mark 14, verses 3 through 9. And a little questionable, Luke 7, 36 through 50. Yeah, Luke 10,
38. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I'll, hopefully we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So anyway, is Wi-Fi started?
Please.
Okay,
You've
so
got a lot.
I've got Martha.
She's got Martha.
And I think Martha's pretty cool. What the relationship with Martha, Lazarus, and Mary is they're really good friends with Jesus, and so he comes to their house often, and it's like he
likes to go to their house.
He likes to go to their house. He goes, yeah. They're fun. They're a cool couple. Mm-hmm. You know, I imagine them being like the hipsters of the
probably really good food over there.
Yeah, sure. Really good food, great hospitality, kindness, just kindness.
Yeah, they had money, so it must have been a nice place.
Yeah, a nice place, because not only him, it was his disciples as well. Mm-hmm. So they're friends, and he was happy and comfortable there. That's huge. So think about that. There's this wonderful relationship, and so where the question part of Luke comes in is that there's also a house called the house of Simon the leper, which in a commentary that I read could be their dad. So it's unknown. That would make sense that the leper would have to leave, and then, then they'd have to find dad. Hey, dad, guess what? We found somebody who could cure you. And then finally he comes back later on, but it also describes him as a Pharisee. Very interesting. So if he's a Pharisee, he's a smart guy. He has money to be educated. So this family does have money, right? Yep. And a big house to entertain.
True, right?
Yeah. All right, so number 2, our sweet Martha, she blows it big time.
Well, tell us about that scene. What was happening?
Yes. Okay, so I'll just read Luke 10:38 through 42. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, they came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to them. Even though the guy is Lazarus, it's supposed to be the guy's house, it says Martha's home, which speaks a lot about her. And you'll see that Mary gets a lot of mention too, and it's less about Lazarus and more about these two ladies. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted, that's the key word here, by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care my sister's left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. And then this is Jesus' response. Remember, Jesus is the same God where when Miriam fussed that she got leprosy, right? Okay, so this is what Jesus says. Martha, Martha. Mm-hmm. The Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. Or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. So that's huge. So not only this wasn't a little intimate conversation. There was people all over the place listening. Martha interrupted a teaching, a preaching of Jesus with this. So the people there were like, whoa, she's a little upset, you know. Can you imagine? Yeah. And so she blows it. Cool how Jesus talks to her, right? He says the many things. So it's the little things. Because we just went over treasures in heaven, that's exactly what happened here. She let the things of the earth separate her from her relationship. Mary, in some translations, said she served and then sat down. So she probably thought, hey, everything looks great. I'm going to go sit with Jesus. Martha was like pressing the butter in the shape of little leaves and, getting the exact flowers. I mean, she was doing the stuff that really didn't need to be done. It was all okay. She could have sat down too, but she just, God bless her sweetheart. She just really wanted it to be her best, and that snowballed into separating her relationship with God.
How often have we done that, huh?
Yes, yes.
Or a dinner party or something,
and so one of the big comments of this is devotion is more important than service. All right, and churches get so off with this. We've got 40 days of purpose, and this and that, and what ministry are you serving on? Oh, you're breathing. Let's get you busy and go teach a class or something. Yeah, devotion is more important than service. Yeah, pretty cool here. That's a big thing to take away. All right, moving on. So Jesus calls her by name 2 times, and he gently sets her straight. I think it's very interesting. He does this with other people. He'll call Peter by name. So Jesus knew that Martha was pretty special. And you'll see, because the only part we see is, oh, she blew it. But Jesus knew that this woman was rock solid. Because later on, in John 11, her brother dies, Lazarus dies. And Jesus, John's really good about letting the nuances go, because the disciples are like, oh, he's going to die, he's falling asleep. And they're like, oh, if he's rusting. And then he's like, he's dead, guys. He's dead. And then we're going to go, and it's going to show what God can do. God's going to be glorified there. And the disciples are like, oh. I love them. John's so honest with, showing how they're so goofy. But anyway, he goes over, and Martha says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. She goes, I know. He'll rise again in the resurrection at the last day. And Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? He looks at her, face to face. And you know what she answers him? This is beautiful. She's like, yes, Lord, she replied, I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world. The only other person who says this is Peter, right? The rock. So here this lady who has, she gets the bad rap. No, she's come full circle. She knows her relationship now because of this gentle rebuke. And I think that's a good one for us these days, where we're all trying to shove our thoughts down other people's throats. A gentle rebuke. can change a heart, right? Yeah. And there's one other thing where Martha comes. Oh, yeah, she skips a little bit when he's like, oh, pull the stone away, and she's like, ooh, he's thinking. And he's like, what did I say to you? And she's like, stone away. And she makes it happen, you know. Martha's the make it happen girl.
Yeah.
And then
that was a light bulb moment.
yeah,
She's the one that made that happen. Yeah.
yeah. And then on John 12 let's see, verse 2. Jesus anointed at Bethany, so the alabaster jar and the anointing. Martha, it says, 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany where Lazarus lived, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. Here a dinner was being given in Jesus' honor. Martha served. That's all it says. Martha served. Which means she functioned in her gift. She didn't have a problem with her relationship. You know, she was there. She was probably taking it all in. It didn't say she served and didn't fellowship. She was there and she served. She was functioning in her relationship. So it's okay, function in your relationship, but don't lose that connection with God, right? Mm-hmm. That's the main thing. And the Martha's, what a good example of, oh dang, I blew it big in front of everybody. And then, but she comes around, and man, what an anointing she had on her to be able to say to God, you are the Christ, you're the Messiah, right? Mm-hmm. So she ended very well. Her treasure definitely in heaven will definitely see that lady there, and I'll be like, girl, it's as if I know you, right? I so relate to you. All right, and that is my Miss Martha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we timing? Do you still have time, or are we okay?
Yeah. You know what? Here, I'll time you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot. Even these women had 3 instances where it was pretty significant, and so I've got Mary, Martha's sister. So if we go back to Luke 10:38 to 42. Back to the verse, and she had a sister called Mary, here who also, it says, who also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. So that's kind of all telling, even though that's a tiny part in this very significant passage for these women, because you could kind of read that and just fly by that. Oh, that's great. She sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word, and here Martha was really doing everything. And it's like, it gave the impression, actually, when Martha had said, Lord, do you not care that my sisters left me to serve alone? That perhaps there was some, a little bit of enmity between sisters at that moment. Gosh, I'm the one doing everything, and look, you're just sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah, that wasn't true.
And that wasn't true, of course. So Mary's, I want to say Mary's like the spiritual girl. She's the girl that worshipped, let me get my notes up real quick. So she worshipped in a very different way, her operation of her gift. That was that her motives and desires, they were commendable, that her heart, let's just say that her heart, and I think both their hearts were in the right place, but at that moment, her heart was in the place of worship, of worshiping the Lord, and that's why we have that scripture there, that she was at his feet. And so it's just kind of telling that we just shouldn't forget, you guys, that the acts of service that we do, if we go back now to Ephesians, and I know I've talked about it probably a million times, but and Pastor Dave's the one that got me on that. Ephesians 2:8-10, really quick. Because we're talking about works now. We just want to remember, for by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God. Number 1, again, salvation is a gift of God. And number 2, in verse 9, not of works, lest anyone should boast. So, and if we go on to 10, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works. So that's the priority of our acts of services and things like that. So it, I believe that Jesus was kind of showing there that Mary was at his feet and Martha was serving, and rightfully so, because those works flow from the grace that we've given from God. So it's works not unto, oh, look, see how impressive I'm being right now. It's works because Jesus is righteous and look at what he did for me. And I'm so grateful for what he did for me. And now I'm doing great things and great works because it's based in his righteousness, not our own righteousness. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out.
Right. Good clarification. Yes. Good
For
clarification.
Mary,
Yeah.
yeah. And so maybe because Martha, and I've done that, like I know when I had my home and we threw parties, I mean, I wanted everything perfect. And it's just something that happens and overtakes us as women sometimes. We do want to, whatever it is, your thing, if you want the curtains a certain way, or like Jeanette was saying, you want the butter cut up in special shapes, and you're really all about the details, but those things take time. And sometimes if we don't prioritize our time right, those things can actually overtake everything else. So then the original intention, yes, was to, give your guests a good time and see how gracious you are and all that kind of stuff. But we as the hostesses can get lost in the details. And I think that's why he was gently rebuking Martha, because it wasn't wrong.
Mm-hmm.
She was there to serve him, to Martha.
Yeah.
But and that's why we were talking before we put the tape on that. Look what happened. Remember Miriam?
Yeah.
When she got rebuked, she got leprosy. So
Yeah.
Jesus did not give Martha leprosy. I think it's a gentle reminder to us, because we have this story to remind us every day. Okay, so that's that, because I could go on and on and on. I just think about Jeanette and I, both our lives. The reason why this is at 7:30, number one is our schedule, so we can do this. And I shared this Thursday a little bit, but I didn't like that. We did the prayer. We had the prayer live stream Wednesday morning, and then my daughter and I were going to leave out of town right after that. But because I was trying to fit everything in a box and in a timeline, that just did not work. It was hard for me to really. I didn't have my morning of meditation and worship to God, and so I kind of forwent that went, and so my mind, it's just like I was almost like doing, and so I had to stop myself, because this convicted me, and I had to be like, okay, am I just doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff now, or am I really thinking, is this glorifying God? So I think the lesson is, in everything we do, is this to magnify and glorify God ultimately, or am I getting lost in the details?
Right.
Lost in translation,
yeah,
right?
You missed your couch time with Jesus.
Yeah, I missed my couch time. I like my couch time.
Yeah.
All right, so that's that one.
Miss Mary. Continue
I
on.
know.
She's actually got a lot of cool
I guess
stuff
she's
about
got
her.
a lot, because I was telling Jeanette, I'm like, I don't have that much.
And then I'm like, oh, did you see this? Did you see that?
From the truth,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it always is.
Yeah, God's pretty amazing. So let's jump to John now. John 12. Yeah, John 12, and then after I'm done with this, let's both talk about more in depth. Oh, you already kind of did about Lazarus, but okay, I'll talk about it. So let's go to the 6 days before Passover. So that is in John 12, verses 1 to 7. Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, who had been dead, whom he had raised from the dead. There they made him a supper. Martha served, but Lazarus was one of those who sat at the table with him. Then Mary took a pound of very costly oil of spikenard, anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of oil. But one of the disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, who would betray him, said, "Why was this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" That's significant. Remember that, you guys. This he said not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the money box, and he used to take what was put in it. Jesus' response was interesting. So in 7 it says, "Let her alone. She has kept this for the day of my burial. For the poor you have with you always, but me you do not have always." Okay? And then also significant, a great many of the Jews knew that he was there, and they came not for Jesus' sake, but they might also see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead.
Right.
But they were plotting. Remember that the
Yeah.
chief priests were plotting to put Lazarus to death also. So Jesus was just creating all kinds of havoc. So
This was a big deal right here, and because they opened their house to him. Remember, this was kind of a hard time for Jesus because disciples had left away. The Pharisees were really hounding him, trying to kill him. But can we back up to this? This kind of gives the idea of who Mary was back
you can explain that real quick.
in John 11, in the death of Lazarus. And verse 11 says, "Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary," right? And her sister Martha. So even though it was Martha's house, Mary ruled the village, but not like ruled it. But I think she was like that social butterfly. Yeah, she was the one who was like, "Let's throw a baby shower, Martha." And Martha's like, "Okay." And she's like, "Oh, those are wonderful blintzes you make. Let me take them to our neighbor." She was the one out caring and being with the people, which meant she spent a lot of foot time outside and interacting with people, having a relationship. So it's no wonder that she can have a relationship with Jesus. This was easy for her. This was her gift.
She was the people person.
Yeah, the people person. And it ends with let's see. When at Lazarus' death, when he saw her weeping, this is Mary, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping. Then verse 45, it says that the people around Mary came to know Jesus because of her, basically, in verse 45. So Mary was an evangelist too. She was like, "This is my Jesus. This is what he can do." And
you pointed that out. Yeah.
So
that, I did not see that. So yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, they're really a cool dual sister team, you know?
Cool sister team. So hopefully you guys get some new insights. But remember, it said, that, who said it? Judas said, why wasn't the alabaster, so let's go back to the alabaster box.
Yeah.
Why wasn't that sold for 300 denarii? That's significant right there, because obviously his intentions, he didn't care about that. He was a thief, it says in the next verse. So that perfume, I was looking at another commentary, that perfume could have been sold for a lot of money. And she obviously, so the alabaster box, you guys, was the box that contained the perfume that at the supper she broke open in order to pour it over Jesus. And that was in preparation, like a spiritual preparation for his burial, actually, for what was about to happen to him. And so she, in essence, knew that in a way. I believe somehow spiritually she knew that, that he was going to do something great, because we know that his greatness was in his death, actually. Remember, everything that happened we would not have if he did not die for us.
Right.
So
because a few days later he goes through with the Palm Sunday, and they're lauding him as king. Yeah.
So anyway, so that's just all telling, because of course, what did Judas do in the end? He actually sold, right, sold the secret of where Jesus was for way less than what he was babbling about here. So that just made him a hypocrite. So that's what I was trying to point out. So there was a lot of jealousy and stuff going on, and even in, Mary was evangelizing to the Jews, and everyone, I believe, respected her in the village and what she said. So again, I think she had, and Jesus knew, though, she had her motives, and her heart was right, and her priorities. So her priority was worship to God, and that's where she was. And that's why we see her symbolically always at his feet. She was always at his feet. Martha was serving, and that's great. But that's an example to us to show that, remember, worship is over service. And service we do because, again, as a flow from grace, not a flow to grace because of what we do, but a flow from grace. So that if we see that, because there's a lot of religions out there that say, they use the faith without, without works is not, is dead. And we know the religions that some of them that do that, but that's wrong. But it's easy to get caught up in that and to start doing that ourselves, and we have to tell ourselves all the time, remember, we're doing this from the flow of grace.
Right.
So
especially as a baby,
that's the big lesson.
Christian, you're not sure what you're supposed to do or what. You're really happy that somebody told you about it, and maybe you feel like you need to do that, but then you're just, everybody's like at you, So maybe that's not your gift. It's all right. It's okay.
So they had different gifts for sure.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's pretty cool to embrace the different gifts. Yeah.
Okay, so I also have, she was, at his feet, she's there sitting still, listening, pondering. She showed a maturity in spiritual things. She did the gesture of anointing him, what we just talked about with the alabaster box and the perfume. And it's obvious, she chose worship over service. And so I think my summation of her would be, to you, would be to ask you, or to tell you that what we believe is ultimately more important than what we do. What we believe is ultimately more important than what we do about things of the Lord. So. Right.
She also fell at his feet at the
Lazarus,
the raising of Lazarus. It says, verse 32, when Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been there, my brother would not have died.
Yes.
At his feet, his feet. I think that's really kind of cool about her. She's very
and she says that here,
humble.
I know, in a commentary that both women were in agreement about that, though. They both had the same belief. Right. That had you been here, Lord, if we go now to the Lazarus account in John 11, 30, what is it? Well, it's in John 11, towards the end, the middle of John 11. But both women were in agreement and belief that, Lord, had you been here, this would not have happened. He would, my brother would not have died.
And they both basically say the same thing.
Yeah. But however, in contrast, the Jews came with, so they had the right heart. But the Jews came, see how he loved him. But now they said, could not this man who opened the eyes of the blind also have kept this man from dying? So, their saying had a little bit of like, I don't know. It had a little bit of jealousy in it. Remember what Pastor said yesterday about jealousy. Don't let it overtake you. So apparently they were a little jealous of what he could do and things like that. So I just wanted to point that out a little bit, that their intentions were not completely, because right after that it says, then Jesus, again groaning in himself, came to the tomb. And there's controversy over that groaning in himself, because I think of it like he wept, he did grieve, he loved Lazarus, And then there are these guys, kind of like jumping on the bandwagon of Mary and Martha. Yeah, well, you think if he could have, like, if he was here, that wouldn't have happened. But man, how about, like, he could have just stopped it completely. They just kept going on and on.
Right.
And so if I were, I guess if I were Jesus, I would have been mad. I would have been like, you don't care about my brother. I love him. And you're just being kind of hypocritical now. You're going the way of a hypocrite. Your jealousy is showing through. Anyway, so, and then also with what Pastor Dave said weeks ago, remember that the next verse in 39 says, Jesus said, take away the stone. So Martha, the sister of him who was dead, said, Lord, by this time there's a stench. But remember, you guys, we also have to take out of our eye the cloudiness that stops us from seeing things clearly, from seeing spiritual things clearly. That could be symbolic of that too. Jesus could have rolled away the stone, and it would have rolled away himself. But it's just interesting that he said that, because he also says, remember, that did I not tell you if you believed, you would see the glory of God? But you have to believe first. So I believe that rolling of the stone away, it's getting away all the things out of your eye that's stopping you from believing that something from God, surrendering your life.
That's good. Yeah, good stuff there.
Anyway, that's where we're at with that.
Yeah.
On that. Anything else?
The only thing, because we're out of time, is that Matthew 26, 6 through 13 says that Jesus anointed at Bethany as well. And they say that they're in the house of Simon the leper. And then Mark 14, 3, 9, that once again, house of Simon the leper. But Luke 7, and I asked Pastor, hopefully he'll give me an answer. Luke's account, Mary's described as the sinful woman. And Simon, still Simon's house, but he's a Pharisee. Which would explain all these Jews around them all the time.
That's true.
Yeah.
So we'll have to really find
So
out.
we don't know. One commentary I listened to said that Simon the leper was maybe their dad. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus' dad. Yeah. So it could be.
Which explains why they would have
the house.
The really nice house, because otherwise what did they do for a living? I really don't know.
Right. Who knows? And then why they would be so ingrained in this Jewish community. Yeah, if they had a father who was a Pharisee. And he could have been gone for a while. They could have had to search him down if he had leprosy, and then it sounds like Jesus healed him. And then he came back in, and Jesus kind of gives him a little lesson. Once again, very nice.
And that's so interesting.
Simon, I have something to tell you. A gentle rebuke, right? A gentle rebuke. Yeah.
I remember, and Pastor was saying yesterday at church about investigative, creative, think for yourself, investigate the Bible. So, I like to think of this as investigative Christianity.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're doing here,
Just because we say it doesn't mean it's true. I mean, but it kind of shows there's a continuity of Bethany, Mary, Martha, Lazarus, and then Simon the leper, Simon's house. There's this continuity of this. And so it kind of makes me think that there's a good way to explain it. And you know what? When it describes Mary as the terrible one, the sinful woman, who doesn't have a black sheep in the family? Come on. She could have been that black sheep, but you know
for
what?
the family, yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Could be a reason why she knew that
Martha
so
outwardly
much.
showed the external, like, look at me, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm serving. Because it's what a woman would do back then, right?
Right.
And why is Mary sitting at his feet?
And then she's also known, it's Mary's village.
Yeah. And it's her village. But so very different. These ladies were apparently worlds apart in their behaviors. But they
complemented each other too.
They complemented one another, obviously, and but they were on board unison about how much they loved their Lord, though. Even though they were very different from one another, they both loved the Lord.
Right.
And they both did serve Him.
Yeah. Their treasure was in heaven, and it shows very much so for both of them.
Yeah.
Very much.
It's almost like obviously God knew that thousands of years later we'd be reading this story, and I do feel those messages are for us though. It's more for us
Yeah.
to remind ourselves, like we said, so worship over service and
Mhm.
service from the flow of grace
Yes.
to the throne of God.
That's huge.
So
All right.
that's the lesson I
Mwah.
think today.
Yep, yep.
All right.
See ya on Thursday
Yeah.
morning.
Yep, see it Thursday
Much
morning
love.
at occc.church, and scroll down to the flashing boxes. You'll see Arise and Shine. Click on that, click onto the link Zoom, and that'll let you right in. And there's a study, there'll be a study also, as there is every week, available to you if you want to do that as well. If not, just come join us and talk Thursday morning, 7:30. Thanks, you guys.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.